Thank you. Well, thank you for everybody that's joined us this afternoon, or it could be, I guess, depending upon where you're at, it could be evening, I don't know. But this is a nice opportunity to talk about a very interesting type of project. I think everybody has a chance to kind of take something that's I'd say a poorly running operation and make it a good operation, but it's very rare that you get a chance to take a good one that's already working and make it a great one. And how does that really take place? I think we're going to talk a little bit about, the creativity that's involved in trying to take something that's good to get great, and how we did that, combining injecting some academic work actually into the design of this particular warehouse. So today I've got myself, Rich, Brian, that are going to go through a project that we did with Stampin' Up. Okay, so here's the fine crowd that we've kind of assembled to take you through. I'm Steve Mulaik. I'm a partner with Argon Co. I'm going to let the other three folks introduce themselves, beginning with Rich. You're on here, and why don't you say a few words about your background, Rich?
Yeah, my name is Rich Bushell. I'm the Director of Global Distribution Services for Stampin' Up. Been in the logistics industry for going on 39 years, going on 40 years, I guess.
Wow.
And been with Stampin' Up just a little over 5 years.
Great. How about Rachel?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Patel. I've been with Argon for now about 6.5 years. I graduated from tech and started with them right after. I also primarily work in the logistics and warehousing practice with Steve.
And Brian?
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Buckley. I'm a consultant at Argon Co. for the past about 2.5 years, working with Steve under the warehousing and logistics practice.
So all of us had something to do with Rich's project. I mean, I kind of led it. Rachel was kind of overseeing a lot of the systems related work, and Brian did a lot of the analytical work around validating the results that we're going to talk about today. Let me start by saying a few words about who Argon Co. is, just so we can get our plug in on this webinar. Argon Co. is a global supply chain consulting firm. We have offices all around the world. We have 850 people, and all we do is work in the supply chain. And while we're going to talk about just warehousing today, we work in every discipline. We have folks that have deep expertise in procurement and planning, forecasting, transportation. We even do some operations strategy type work where we take kind of the COO's agenda and try to turn that into a series of projects and kind of lead them through that. We really kind of cover the whole gamut. Again, it's not just in the United States, where we've been operating for almost 30 years, but it's around the world that we're able to do this. And so a lot of the projects that we do are actually global in nature. But today we're going to be talking about one that we've done in Salt Lake City for Stampin' Up. And Rich, why don't you say a few words about Stampin' Up? Because there's probably people on this call maybe have heard of you, but maybe not everybody.
Sure. So Stampin' Up's been around for 35 plus years. We are a paper crafting company, and we primarily live in the direct marketing industry. We have about 45,000 demonstrators, who is basically our sales force throughout the world in North America, South Pacific, and in Europe. We really, what we do is we facilitate gathering, and we do it through paper crafting, whether that's doing cards or memory keeping, those type of things.
Yeah, gathering is an interesting way to describe it, but I mean, it really is communities. It's people that are getting together to do this, is that they're as a way of kind of socializing. It's not just about creating crafts, it's also about creating community, which I think is kind of an interesting twist on this. It's a much bigger than a normal business would be.
Yep.
Okay, so Rich, why don't you kind of talk a little bit about the situation at Stampin' Up when we kind of showed up a little bit there, just some background on what's going on in 2021.
You did there. Yeah, so really the way things all started out, in 2008, we implemented a new facility in Riverton, Utah, where we put in a WMS, a great warehousing system. It had Pictolite, a bunch of stuff. And it had basically served its purpose and had done a great job. As we move forward into 2021, we're kind of at the point of end of life of that system. And what we were running on was a tier 1 WMS and had a Pictolite, and it functioned okay. It did the job it needed to do, but a lot had changed in those 12, 14 years of working that. Part of that, those changes were just the order profiles changed, the way we did business changed a little bit, and quite frankly, the WMS had kind of outlived its usefulness, and so I had been tasked within just a few weeks of coming in to work at Stampin' Up! To look at the option to change our WMS and find something that we could replace that would get us through the next 10 to 15 years. And through some contacts that I had, I actually reached out to Steve. I didn't know where Steve worked or what he did. I just reached out to Steve and said, listen to what we have to say, and let's see if we can come up with a way to make this better. And so that's really how. And
I think that's what's really interesting about it. I mean, it was when Rich first called me, there's a great deal of temptation just to, because the system is kind of showing its age and things have changed a little bit. It's a great deal of temptation, I think, to just replace the things that are aging out and or not working consistently or reliably with just new stuff that does the same thing. And I think what to Rich's credit and Stampin' Up's credit, I think the assignment here was a little different. Instead of it wasn't a call where they said, hey, Steve, can you just go replace my Pictolite and my WMS and my WCS because they're not really working as well and they're showing their age. It was really, hey, can we come up with a solution that will be better than what we got today? And that, I think that was what made this project different, was that kind of motivation, because without that, we would have, I mean, you wouldn't really probably have needed it. You just would have called an integrator and just go say, hey, I need a Pictolite, I need a WMS, a WCS, can you give it to me?
Yeah, and I don't think I knew what I was getting myself into. And as I started down that process, it's funny how many people told me, you're only going to do this once because it's going to be the most miserable thing you've ever done in your life. And people that have been through the process would probably even agree that, like, no, you don't want to change the WMS. But ultimately, what we did is exactly what you said. We looked at it and said, let's not just replace this. Let's see where we can maybe make it better and get some gains. And ultimately, if where we ended at the end of the process was just putting a new system in, that's fine. But there are some opportunities there, and we saw some specific gaps in the way we did business that we wanted to address. And we so that was kind of, we went into this with more of an open mind of saying, let's not just replace what we have. We had a tier 1 system. It's one of the best WMSs out there. And so first of all, how do we make that one better, or do we go a different direction?
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I think there's kind of two core problems here that as we kind of got in and started looking at what's going on inside the facility itself. You see a picture here on the right where this young lady is kind of standing around waiting on something to come to them. For those of you guys that are familiar, and we're going to explain this in a minute, but their operation is a very large Pictolite pick and pass type system. So an order will come down the line, and I'll put the stuff that's in front into that order from the locations that are behind me, and then I'll pass it to Rich, and he'll put the things in that order that are needed from the products that are right behind him. And so the box kind of flows down the line. Well, there's inevitably periods of time where you see, like this young lady, she's got her hands in her pocket. She didn't have anything to do. Okay, so that was one problem. I think that the other problem that Rich alluded to in a second earlier was that the equipment had kind of shown its age, and there were periods where things would go down, and they'd have some outages and things that were kind of unexplained, and the vendors were kind of struggling to fix this, and so that was also a second kind of motivation. But when we started looking at the data, we saw these periods of inactivity. And we started thinking, okay, is there a way that we could eliminate those? Because we had kind of heard some, as I think Rachel mentioned, she's a Georgia Tech grad. I'm a Georgia Tech grad. Brian's a Georgia Tech. We had heard some things about a technique that might be able to address this problem. And it just kind of got injected into the thinking, I guess, very early on.
Yeah, let me interject a couple things there.
Yeah.
It wasn't that the WMS wasn't working. We would have downtime with it though. And the issues that we were having, which is why we knew we were end of life, was our WMS and our WCS were different vendors. And so there was a lot of pointing as to who was the problem. And nobody, it's kind of like that person that has a chronic illness and goes to the doctor, and at some point the doctor doesn't know how to help you, so they don't know what to do. That's kind of where we were at, is nobody could give you a valid direction on how to fix that. And then it's funny because I don't think we recognized how much time people were standing around waiting for work until we really started taking a hard look at waste and saying, how do we make people more productive? And the fixed zones, which Rachel and Brian are going to go through, really it became very apparent that we needed to do something to allow people to move outside of those fixed zones. And Steve's the one that really drove that, hey, there is a way to do it, which scared the crap out of all of us. And and we weren't sure that he even really knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But the reality is,
professor-like guy. Yes.
But the reality is, we did a lot of prep work up front and looked at our operation and said, oh my goodness, we've got people that are working consistently hard all day, and we've got people that are standing next to them in a fixed zone with nothing to do for a percentage of time that's it was hard to hold people accountable. So that's really kind of the problem where we were at.
And I think we got to really emphasize here, Rich, your operation was not atypical. I mean, you had good productivity from the people from the system that you had. I mean, it wasn't, I mean, while there's this idle time, it wasn't like this is any different from all the other Pictolite systems that I visit around the country. You were getting good productivity for what you had as a design. It was really about, this project became going from, like I said, good productivity to great productivity. And that's what I think is so unique about this. And it required, like you said, a little crazy professor ideas to get there. Let's in fact, perhaps we should kind of dive into that part about, how did we decide to fix this? As I said before, we had to get creative. We had to leverage some academic work that had been done a decade or more, actually 2 decades, I guess, ago, and kind of partially known, and only because we went to Georgia Tech and I happened to know the professor who did the research, were we able to kind of incorporate it. We're gonna go on and we're gonna talk a little bit about that. I think the process that we had to go through was more than just kind of injecting that idea. It was also, we had to actually solve the technical problem that he was talking about before, which was, okay, we got to figure out how to replace the WMS, the WCS, and the Pictolite. We weren't going to mess around with the ERP, the JD Edwards stuff. Whatever we found was going to have to plug into that. But we didn't want to just do a like for like replacement. We wanted to do something kind of more than that. And so what we ended up doing, I'm going to let Rachel kind of explain, because she was there on site. She can kind of talk to how what they did before, and then we have some nice little cool graphics to explain, and then what we did after.
Yeah, so it wasn't only going to be expensive, right, to replace the Pictolite system, but it also didn't address some of the core issues that Steve and Rich talked about, which is like labor imbalances, idle time, low productivity. And so these issues had stemmed from their pick and pass model. And in this model, as you can see in a second, workers operated in fixed zones, and you can see the color distinction between the zones. Each of those colors represent a zone, and so a picker was constrained to their designated zone. And if you hit next, you'll see he's only constrained within that blue zone. And regardless if you had work or not, pickers stood idle, which is like the guy on the right hand side. He doesn't have any work in front of him, so he's just standing there, right? So we recognized that Stampin' Up was going to need something a little bit better. And so that's when we took that inspiration from research. And if you go to the next slide, there's a nice little picture of the professor that Steve's been referring to this entire time. So Dr. John Battaldi was a renowned industrial engineer and professor at Georgia Tech. And he had spent a very long time on figuring out how warehouses can be more efficient. And so he found inspiration through nature at times, looking for simple yet powerful examples of organization. And so that's when he noticed ants. And if you can see on the right-hand side, I'll talk about in a second, they have this fascinating ability to accomplish very complex tasks despite having and lacking very
A wee little
low
brain.
individual intelligence. So he applied this concept to warehousing and covered the idea of what we're calling self-organizing systems. And it's like a self-organizing pick line, or you can say it's like self-adjusting to reflect not only imbalances, but also demand down the line. And it's also it looks at imbalance in skill set as well of pickers along the line. So you see how on the right-hand side, the leaf, they're able to take from something from the left side of the leaf to the right. And that's what we've kind of applied to the bucket brigade process. And on the next slide, you'll see what we mean by bucket brigade.
Oh,
So
the zones
here,
are gone. There's no zones. Okay.
yeah, you can see that all colors are gone. It's all blue. And so if you hit next, you'll now see that you keep picking until you bump into somebody. And when you bump into somebody, you leave the order there for them if you wish, and then you go back and get another order. Or if you hit next, when you finish the order, like the guy in the orange, he finishes it, he has nothing to work on, and he walks upstream, takes the the blue person's order, and then that person in the blue, if you hit next, will then go back upstream and take an order from another person, or he'll start a new order. So that's the concept of bucket brigade. And we met with Stampin' Up, and I'm sure they were like, what are you talking about? We kind of discussed all our options, and we ultimately came to Stampin' Up with the proposal that they should implement bucket brigade in pretty much eliminating their fixed zones.
Yeah, let me just interject one thing here. People are probably thinking, well, you just really did a poor job of slotting, and that's your problem.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
What I'm gonna tell you is, as we went through this process and we talked to, I can't even tell you, 12, 15 different companies. My slotting guys I'd put against anybody out there. We do a phenomenal job of slotting. And there's software packages and all kinds of things that people throw out there about slotting, and they try to sell it to me. And every time I've looked at it, I'm just kind of laugh and think, you guys have no idea, because we do a good job. The challenge we have is that our order profiles change sometimes multiple times during the course of the day. And so to allocate those products into golden zones and that during the course of a day is very difficult to do. And so what you literally had people standing in a zone that could be busy, and they could be working really hard for 2 hours, and then the order profile changes, and all of a sudden there's nothing, maybe there's only 10% work to do. You couldn't pull them out of that zone because there's still boxes that need to go through that zone, but they're locked into it. And so the bucket brigade addresses that, in that there's nothing to keep a person in a zone there. It basically took that away. They can move up and down the line, and they move to the work. And I think the key part of this is moving to the work. That really, if you wanted to throw something out there, it's move to the work.
Yeah, I think the other thing that Rachel said that's worth kind of echoing is that there's also not only imbalances throughout the day for demand in different zones, but there's also different ability. There was new people and people that are really, been there for a long time. They really know what they're doing. Well, the people that really are very good, they're kind of limited by the speed of their slowest link, right? If it's in a pick and pass kind of environment. Whereas this lets somebody that's really good, they can pick a whole bunch more than they would normally in a classical pick and pass kind of situation. So it's also about ability variability, not just demand variability.
Yeah. One more comment. Accountability. Accountability was very difficult in the previous solution, because how do you hold someone accountable if they don't have the work in front of them?
Yeah.
And the person next to them has plenty of work. And so you struggle to reward someone that's succeeding because the person next to them maybe doesn't have the opportunity. This also addresses that, because everybody has the same amount of work available without the fixed zones.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. I think, Rich, maybe you can kind of describe a little bit about how voice picking kind of it's augmented this, because we got rid of the Pictolite, we put in voice picking. So I think it's probably important that you kind of delve into that a little bit, because that's not intuitive, I think, to a lot of people.
No. So everyone will tell you, if you're looking for the best, go to Pictolite. They just across the board. And then Steve comes to us with this just crazy idea of, what if we get rid of the zones and we move to something, which getting rid of the zones for us was hard enough. But then he said, let's get rid of Pictolite too, and maybe add a voice where it's telling you what to do. And by the way, across the board, our team that we put together, we thought he was crazy. And we and we went out and we had an open mind. We looked at a lot of different solutions out there. Some people do a great job, some people do an adequate job, some people do a poor job with it, and it's kind of all over the board. However, I think it was trying to get to see that big picture, that how it could work with us. So literally, as we did that, there were a couple of things that really made a difference, and that is, it wasn't just Steve and I making the decision. We had a team and our team included folks from the front line all the way up that were all the owners of the operation, and everybody had a say in what we were going to do. And we spent quite a bit of time. There really wasn't an off-the-shelf solution for this. We had to build it and customize it, but it worked really good. And then I think the other thing that's really interesting is there are different solutions for using voice, and we looked at a couple of those. We ended on AccuSpeech. Bob Bova over at AccuSpeech has a great product that they put forth. It's pretty simple. It's a screen scrape technology. And so what you're looking at on your handheld that actually tells you what you're supposed to be doing, it just screen scrapes that and puts it in your ear. And the brain is an amazing thing in that what you would think would be slower, you can turn that thing, you can't make it go fast enough for your brain to hear it. I think right now everybody just has it on the absolute fastest speed it will go. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of I think the big thing is moving away from we did look at, actually, as part of this process, we looked at what would it cost to either replace our Pictolite or continue using the current one and then integrate it with a new WMS. And it was just cost prohibitive. It was so expensive to try to do it either way. And voice is relatively affordable. I'm not going to say it's cheap or inexpensive, because it's not, but it's affordable. And I would say also that the devices we use, it works on an Android device. Our WMS runs on the Android device, which is really simple to use. You can buy Android phones off of Amazon if you want, or you can go with the high-end Zebra Android devices. But either way, it works great. And also the headsets are, originally we were using some pretty expensive headsets and some both tethered and Bluetooth. What we found is people just wanted to use their own. So we have people that pick with AirPods. We have people that buy their own Bluetooth headsets or whatever. And it all works pretty well. And we really haven't found anything that doesn't work well with the system.
I think it's amazing how fast it also is easy to deploy new voice on top of an existing WMS using the AccuSpeech stuff. I mean, that literally in an afternoon, they were able to like get a picking screen kind of going.
Yep.
Which I was not, that didn't fall in line with my expectation for what voice is about. So it's not only inexpensive as from a user license, but I think even an integration perspective, it seems to be very cost effective too. So it's something well worth talking about. Okay.
Yeah, and I would also add, and I know we're going to talk about this, but we saw folks that were picking twice and sometimes 3 times more than they were in the old system. So we had a way of tracking. I saw a question there where someone said, how did you know did you have standards for people on labor rates? And we did. And, but we saw people immediately just take to the system and exceed because they liked the ability to hear it in their ear as opposed to the visual piece. So worked really good. You can flip. So we really had 3 goals going into this. Obviously, we wanted to see some productivity gains. We wanted to see, customer satisfaction or employee satisfaction, and we want it to be cost effective. And then obviously we need to be able to scale it as our business grew or shrinks. We need to be able to have a system that can meet that need. It's probably important to know on the old system, you had standard zones that you had to staff because you had product in those zones. On the new system, you can scale up or down based on the demand. So in the past, when we had a slow time, it was really difficult because you had to have a full staff.
Yeah, the staffing must have been about the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a busy time. Yeah.
Exactly. But on this side, you can throw as many bodies you want at it or as few bodies as you wanted at it because there are no zones to hold you back. I would say we met all of these goals. We've been very happy that we've seen the productivity gains. I would say overall, our workforce is more engaged with what we're doing. There's more ownership, and I would say there's more satisfaction. And I would say that we met the cost-effective piece and being able to scale it. I think we hit all of our goals.
And it's not hard for people to learn the system too. I mean, I think that's another thing that I know you always talk about how you walked out one afternoon and just put it on, and within like 20 minutes you were picking.
Yeah. I think we have a slide on that at some point, but I'll just speak to that real quick here. One of the things we were concerned about was in the past with the pick to light, you could basically pull a temp in, throw them on the line. You spend half hour, 45 minutes with them, and they're up and running, picking, and pretty much within, by the end of the day, they're doing what everybody else is doing. Our concern of making this change was we utilize a temp workforce for our peaks and our valleys. And we also use some of our folks that work in our administration. They'll come down and help us on big peaks. So we needed the ability to be able to train people quickly. And we recognized that going into this, that the learning curve might be really a challenge. We were prepared for that to take a few days as opposed to a few hours, but we recognized that overall it would be better off. But what we found was that was not the case. There's really not a lot of difference in how quick you can bring someone up to speed. You put the headset on them, you take them out there, you show them, and you work with them for an hour or so, and they're up and running. And maybe their production's doesn't come up as quickly, but within I would say 3 days, 2-3 days, you're seeing similar pick rates as everybody else. And we also, if you go to the next slide, we also, interestingly enough, I was dumb, I guess, because I didn't expect this would happen. I don't think anybody expects it to happen on a change curve, but we implemented it, and we kind of thought we would just like hit the ground running and it would go through the roof. Even though we were telling everybody it wasn't going to happen, I think ultimately I kind of thought it would. But we did see this reduction in production. That's picks per hour per person. So we were averaging about 175 picks per hour per person, and that was some of the information that Steve and his team put together, looking at a lot of data and deciding what we actually were going to track. And we saw the reduction as people had to change. We have some real tenured folks that work on our line, some of them 20 years. And that's a hard change to go from a pick the light to all of a sudden to have to listen to it in their ear. But we recognized a couple things. You could bring a new person in off the street and they were immediately picking at 200 an hour. And we weren't sure what was going on. And they do that right up to the point that some of our employees would tell them to slow down because they were making them look bad or whatever. But really, ultimately, what we had to do is get people to buy in on how to, I guess, own the system and own the process. And so really, once we were able to start holding people accountable to moving to the work, keeping busy, always picking, we saw our picks per hour go up. And I would even argue with this number a little bit. That was in January. We average right now about 250 pretty consistently on a day by day. There's days we're up in the 270s, and that's per pick, per person, per hour. So pretty good.
Really good. Really good. I think the other nice thing is that nobody complains about picking more, right? I mean, that's
No,
you're not complaining, but more importantly,
No.
the pickers aren't complaining either. I mean, I think that's a neat thing.
Yeah. There's a question, Julia. Are we going to wait till the end to answer these, or should I answer questions?
No, go ahead and do it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So someone asked, how do you quantify your waiting time? That we really spent a little bit of time with Steve and his group going through and looking at what we considered was the most important part of the process, which is the actual pick. Obviously, you only make money if you pick it and put it in the box, right? All the other stuff is waste. And so as a result, we really looked at those, we'll call them events that happen, and we use those events to track whether they're productive or not. And the number that I'll throw out is we actually saw about 30% of the time we had people standing for more than a minute and a half with nothing to do in those fixed zones. So our goal was to get that 30% back and have everybody picking all the time. So that was really on the waste waiting time. And then as far as getting the organization to buy in, I work with a wonderful group of folks, both our leadership team all the way down to our frontline employee. We have a pretty unique culture. So obviously it's part of why I'm here. Even though I say all the time to Steve, I'm retired. I'm in my second life, I guess. And our group, they
Get a lot done for a retired guy.
Yeah, yeah. They understand really what we were trying to do. They were part of the process, and they bought in. They bought into it because they were part of it. So both my VP and everybody really supported what we were doing, and they recognized that there was some real wonderful gains to happen. I mean, obviously we had to hit our cost targets and those things, but we were able to put in what we wanted with our cost targets.
I noticed that I think Sridhar's got his hand up. I mean, did you put something in the chat, Sridhar, with your question? I didn't know. If you put it in the chat, we can answer it.
Yeah. One last thing, and I can't emphasize this enough. This came from Steve and his team up front, and that was, if you really want this to be successful, well, let me back up. Consultants always come in and tell you all the things that they want you to do, but they don't do them. They want you to do them. So this was, I think, part of the consultants telling the customer, hey, if you really want this to be successful, you need to do X, and thinking, oh, that'll give them an out. Well, we bought it. So
you actually did it. You're the first time. Now I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
I hope this works.
So part of that was, honestly, they really pushed the fact that the implementation should be done by the frontline people. So the people that built, for instance, the slotting, where's my slotters? And they helped build it in the WMS. And our WMS that we selected, which was QSSI, their powerhouse. They also pushed that really hard, that they wanted us to be the owners. So we actually did the build of the WMS. We did all the testing, everything. And so the beauty of that was the day we went live, yeah, we had people from Argon here. We had people from QSSI. We had people from JR Controls. We had all those folks here, but the troubleshooters were us. It was our team that was troubleshooting. They owned it. They knew what needed to be fixed. And we had some really, some awesome things that came out of it. We had a number of people that we just saw kind of blossom and bloom in that process, and that have become leaders in our team because they joined in and owned the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Great
Yeah.
point. Okay. So you can just kind of, I think you summarized a little bit of this earlier, but a couple of these you didn't touch on, so I think you ought to touch on those. It's more than just the productivity, I think is the point.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, we have really good morale. We have a long tenure of people. We don't lose people for the most part. Once they start working with us, people like the system. You know, they own it. Onboarding is easy. You train them pretty quick. The office staff, we have a lot of folks that really enjoy coming down and helping on those peak times. And obviously, you know, it's somewhat of a repetitive position to stand in a position and pick into a box. But I will tell you, it's addictive. It's a little bit of a game. And there's a lot of folks out there that spend a lot of time trying to better each other and outpick each other because it's, you know, everybody, it's on a level playing field. It's just how quick can you make the system work for you to beat your buddy or whatever. So yeah, we're really happy with the productivity we get. We're happy with the way the system works, the fact that we can flex it based on product, you know, on what comes in the door as far as what we need to pick. And overall, I think, you know, the morale of the team's really good.
Okay, what we're going to do is I think I want to hand it over to Brian. Brian did a lot of the analytical work. I know somebody, Mika or somebody asked a question about, you know, how did we establish the delay? Well, he did a lot of the analysis of the WMS data to kind of validate that. But he also knows how this works, and he's going to take you through a video here that shows how it worked in the old system and then how it worked in the new system. We shot some video in our office to kind of help people better see this in action, because it's one thing to talk about, it's one thing to show you in the little PowerPoint animation. We're hoping that if you can actually see it in our office set up with cups for pick locations and cups for cartons going down the line, that you'll better understand it. So Brian, why don't you kind of take over and talk about how this works.
So like Steve just mentioned, this is a short video to kind of highlight the differences between your typical serial zone picking setup and what Bucket Brigade can do to help alleviate some of the major challenges that are often seen in these standard pick and pass environments. Sort of start the video. So one of the first major issues that is often seen in a standard serial zone picking environment is work building up in different zones. As Steve and Rich discussed earlier in the presentation, there's often times where one zone will have someone who's extremely busy having work and orders backed up in their zone, while there's someone right next to them with nothing to do. As you can see in this setup here, we have 3 people who are picking with different tools, one with hands, pliers, and chopsticks, just to simulate that difference in worker speeds or worker abilities along the line. And this first simulation in a serial zone pick highlights how a lot of work can build up if there's a huge difference in ability of pickers. Now, the second major issue that often is seen, which was a bigger issue for Stampin' Up! To address here, is the opposite issue of having periods of inactivity within certain zones. So now, flipping the orientation of the pickers a little bit, we now have Carson on the right side, who's picking with his hands as the quote-unquote fastest or most experienced person on the line. And as you can see here, while George and Mark are working really hard to keep up with the demand of orders coming down the line, Carson's kind of standing around, looking out into space, just waiting for work to come down to him and keep him busy. So this
He actually literally did look
Yeah.
over space.
So this is one of the biggest issues that operationally Stampin' Up wanted to address through this project.
Yeah, so orders would build up in front of slow people, and then fast people would stand around and do nothing. So now you're going to talk about the other alternative.
So now looking at this simulation, same setup, but now we're picking in a bucket brigade method. And just to highlight some of the things that Rich and Rachel discussed earlier, the big thing with bucket brigade is that it takes away all of these fixed zones and allows it to deal with the flexibility, not just with how orders are coming down the line and where the picks are, but also within the variability in the abilities of your pickers themselves. So this video here does a pretty good job of highlighting that simulation that Rachel showed earlier of people moving back and forth. So you'll see here Carson finishes his order, pushes it off the end of the line, and then instead of going to the beginning of the line for a new order, he'll walk directly back upstream to George, who's the next person upstream from him, take over his order and pick it to completion. George will turn around and do the same thing, pick the order from Dan, and Dan, being the person at the start of the line, will walk back to the front and start a new order.
And in that way, everybody stays busy. And like I said, in his original analysis, when we had done the WMS analysis, showed like 30% of the time people didn't have anything to do. So that was a major source of the success. But I think also, I think to some degree, voice picking is turning out to be more effective than I think anybody realized relative to pick to light. Just physically performing the picks and so forth is not much different. Okay, so I think we got the last piece here. All right.
So not only was Rich and Stampin' Up's operation able to see a 30+% increase in productivity since implementing Bucket Brigade and the voice picking, but only a few months ago in June, Rich and myself, Rachel and Steve had the opportunity to go down to New Orleans for the annual Work Warehouse Education Conference. And we were able to present on this same exact project that we did at Stampin' Up. And what we did as part of this presentation is we actually gathered audience members, other GMs, other warehouse operators, and people who were in the audience to come on stage and walk through that same simulation. And the only background knowledge that they were given was the presentation that we walked through beforehand. So.
And they did it once serial zone, and then they did it once Bucket Brigade.
Yep.
And, okay.
So we did the same
type of orders, everything, right?
Yep. Okay. Same thing. And just with that limited background and that limited information, even then they were able to pick up Bucket Brigade, understand the concept, and see over a 40% increase from when they ran a serial zone version of the simulation. So that highlights not only the productivity increases that Rich has seen, but also how easy it is to get new people trained and ready to work in this new process.
Before we leave, I want to put in a plug for Work too. I think this is the kind of thing that Work oftentimes endorses. I mean, if you got new ideas and you're interested in learning about new ideas relative to warehousing, the annual Work conference, which I think next year is going to be in Jacksonville. This year was in New Orleans, which was a lot of fun. We had a great time. But it's a great place to go because you can learn a lot about new things that are coming down the pike. There was a great presentation done by Co on using AI in warehousing. There's a great presentation by Barrett Distribution on drones and what they're getting out of using drones in their warehouses. I mean, real practical stuff that with real numbers and everything else that I think really kind of, I was really happy. I thought I got a lot out of the conference, and I think our stuff too was pretty good. So I think it was that people that attended, I think, thought it was a worthwhile exercise to see it. So if you get a chance next year in Jacksonville in June, I think it would be a good thing to go down and see.
Yeah, can I interject before you move to there?
Yeah, sure.
The one thing I want to add, I wanted to wait till you went through all of that. So the idea behind the bucket brigade obviously is a pick and pass, right? You bump against someone, whether it's upstream or downstream, you pick and pass. One of the things that we've really pushed hard on our team is if you have an idea, especially the operators out there that are using it, if you have an idea, throw it at us. We're willing to look and maybe make adjustments. And just like anything, some of those are crazy and we dismiss them and move on down the road. But we actually had one of our temp employees come to us and say, I have an idea. I think you ought to look at it. They came into our conference room. They scripted it out on a whiteboard, and it's what we use today. So we use Bucket Brigade with one caveat, and that's we call it leapfrog. We recognize that the most important part of the process where we make money is actually the pick into the box. And the non-value added is picking up orders and dropping orders between the pass. So rather than have people wasting time bumping into each other and passing, if someone is picking and they have an open line and there's no one in front of them and you were to bump into them, we ask them to drop the box and just move around them, leapfrog them, and vice versa. Coming upstream, if they have nothing to do, you would not stop and take that person's box. You would just go around them. And we just call it move the work. Wherever the work is that's open, we want you to move to. But it's the same. It's no different than using Bucket Brigade. It's just a little caveat in that you're trying to keep people as productive as possible, as long as possible, without doing those things that are waste, which is picking up orders and dropping orders. It's all about the picking into the box.
That's a good point. I mean, I think it's been flexible enough to kind of accommodate innovation, and that's testament to the people contributing stuff. So we have kind of the folks that were involved in this shown on screen, and I think we also have Bob Bova, I think from AccuSpeech, is on the call. So if we have questions that's specific about the AccuSpeech technology itself and how it works with QSSI, we can do that. Rich, as far as the systems now, it works, right? It's reliable.
Yeah, it works good. It works good. We obviously, like with any system, you run through things that you have to tweak and deal with. I think the plus size is the QSSI team is very similar to who we are, and they're very responsive to any changes or needs that we have, and they work with us really well. We look at our AccuSpeech is I'm going to call it a no-brainer because it hasn't really needed a lot of support. They did a good job of turning over those key elements that we need, which is basically, changing words or language or whatever. And so we don't have any issues with those, and our controls guys are doing an awesome job. So yeah, sorry, long way to answer that, but way better when we have, this is another important part. This is really important. In the past, when things went down because you were tied to a pick to light, your entire line had to stand and wait for the system to come back up. That's gone, because now when the line goes down, there are no zones. Everything's in the headset, and and they can continue to pick, even though maybe operationally your conveyor isn't working or whatever. Mm-hmm. They can pick because they just move up and down the line. So that's also been a really positive thing.
Oh, it's a good point.
Anyway, good.
That's
good partners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to kind of summarize how this thing kind of worked from a technical perspective, I just realized we didn't really have a slide that kind of described that. But QSSI had a bunch of picking screens that we were going to use, and we could use to pick and pass, but they didn't have any screens that let us kind of easily drop an order and then start up another order. So they had to make a few kind of modifications to their system to accommodate this new form of picking. So you could drop an order quick and then start another order quick. And then AccuSpeech came in and just kind of used their screen scraping capability and some also logic. I don't want to underplay there is some smarts in the AccuSpeech thing. It's not just screen scraping and just literally reading it back off the screen. It's only say portions of the screen, and it'll use abbreviations and things for zones and stuff to make the communications faster. But they came in and very quickly kind of developed these screen scraped versions, I guess auditory versions of the QSSI picking screens. And that's what really together created the incredibly efficient process that Rich and I and everybody here has talked about today. I think there's a few questions left here. Are they in the chat or something?
Yeah, they're in the chat.
Okay, so maybe we...
let me
Yeah,
add
go ahead.
one more thing. The one beauty of the voice piece is it does support additional languages. So even though the actual device might be in English, you have the ability to go in and change words to speak the language of the person that's picking in their native tongue. And I don't know how many exact languages that it supports, but it's quite a few. Or if maybe there's words that maybe someone has an accent or struggles with, you can actually enter additional words in for those. So it's really somewhat customizable for the person. And we've excelled at that in that people have really been able to, we've been able to support individual people.
Yeah, Bob just chimed in. I see he put something in the chat that it supports 56 languages. I think that Rich, there's another really good question. I think John Janenda asks, can you talk a little bit about how you actually, what do you hear as a picker, or what do you do as a picker to say drop your order and start another one? What is the exact dialogue, if you can kind of recall? Because I know you've been out there, you picked a lot, so you should know this stuff.
Yeah, and I might get it wrong, but I believe we say drop.
I mean, that's literally all you have to do, but you have to say this point, right? I mean, that's
as long as you've completed whatever the task was at the time, which is typically confirming a pick into a box. Once you've confirmed that pick and into the box, if you say drop, it will then take those boxes. And by the way, we actually we do something where we create a train. We take multiple orders, multiple boxes, and we scan those together, which creates a train, which makes for more efficient picking so that you're picking multiple orders at the same time. The voice system tells you which, where to pick it from, how many to put in each of the boxes, and you confirm them back as you do it. And so the way it would work is I would walk up to the line, I would have a ring scanner, I would scan box 1, and it would say 1. I would scan box 2, say 2, scan 3, scan 4, and then I'd say start, and it tells me where to go and how many to grab. I scan that location to confirm that I'm in the right location, and then it says 1 in A or 1 in alpha. And I would take one of those and put it in alpha and say back to it 1 in alpha to confirm the pick. And then it would say 2 in Bravo or whatever the terminology is. At the end of all of that, all you say is drop, and it releases those 4 orders. And those boxes, they're open for anyone to grab. And someone could come up and grab one of those boxes and add it to their train or vice versa. But yeah, it's real simple. And lots of times what you find on this is you're doing a lot of this information as you're moving, you're talking, which increases the productivity. So you're not standing waiting for it to tell you what to do. When you confirm that pick, it's already telling you where you need to go, and you're starting to move in that direction, which is really intuitive. It's great.
I think there's another good question here. I think Jason asks that the work area for the top pickers grew with this new approach, and so leading to more walking than before. I think, you know, we haven't put a Fitbit. We should have done that, a Fitbit on somebody before and after. I think when I've seen this, I've seen one other place in my whole 30 years career where they were doing this, and indeed the person that was the fastest picker covered a lot of ground. But it's their discretion, right? I mean, it's not like we're making them do it. It's because they want to do it, and so they will walk a little bit more, I think, than they would otherwise. Just to,
yeah,
but
I would say
I don't think it's not like a double or triple the walking or anything like that.
It might be. I don't know. I will say there's more walking being done, but because you're also picking while you're doing it, it's probably negligible in that you don't maybe recognize it or notice it. But yeah, really this goes back to the slotting piece. So one of the things that we require and our team has embraced is our slotters are out picking on the line every day, and they're looking for those spots that have long walks, and then determining if they need to move stuff into those areas to create less distance walks. And that's been really valuable. We know that they'll end up with some problem areas and they'll move stuff around. But for the most part, we have found that the people at the beginning are probably the key people, because they have to keep the line fed. They have to move boxes downstream as quick as possible. But after that, it pretty much works itself out with people moving around in the bucket brigade, as well as the leapfrog thing.
I think there was another question from CE about just the walking. It said, do the fastest pickers' productivity go down due to the extra walking, or does it balance out with the lack of waiting time? I think it actually, the elimination, if you're really a fast picker, the walking, the extra walking that you have to do is easily paid for by not having to stand around in the old system, because that's what
I would agree
happening.
I would agree. There's a question on SKUs, and we have about 2,700 SKUs, which we actually we have a double line, so our line's mirrored. We have the same product on both sides of the line to keep people busy. And then he asks about employees at peak. The beauty of this is, in the past, we had fixed zones, so we could only put so many people on the line, and that would be the most we could put. We're actually probably running with half that many people now, and we know we can throw more bodies at it, but there's nothing that limits you on bodies other than you just need to be able to have a little bit of open area to run. So I think we had 48 zones before or something on both all combined. So
Any final questions?
We're kind of up against our end of the session, but it's been a good session. Good questions. Good questions.
Very good question.
And like I said, it's an interesting solution, and the kudos to the Stampin' Up team for having the courage, I guess, one, to do it, and then secondly to be involved enough to really make it a success. And I think those are the two kind of key ingredients there. So thanks again, Rich, for sharing this, because I really think this has applicability to a lot of places, because pick to light and pick and pass is a very common thing throughout North America, and actually the world for that matter. If you have the right kind of order profile, a lot of people do it. And so this is one of the few places that I've seen, and now it's well documented, where this kind of technique has been employed. And so hopefully in the future, other people will be able to take advantage of this as a result. So thanks again for all the willingness.
My endorsement is this. I said at the beginning of this, nobody wants to go through this more than once. I would do it again. So there's your endorsement. It was really challenging, but it was really rewarding. And I would also say, if you have someone that's interested that wants to come see our facility, it's open. We are very willing to show it off and answer questions. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for attending, and this will be recorded. So if you ever want to go back and look at it, you'll be able to do that too.